Welcome to The Different News, yet another episode and a very didactic and a bombastic one. Why bombastic? Because I have an eminent guest today with me, Shurjo Sen. Shurjo is the Program Director, Genomic Data Science from National Human Genome Research Institute, that is NHGRI. Welcome, Shurjo. It's my pleasure to have you on The Different News, and it's an absolute honor to hear from you, your journey, and I think we will have a lot of things to talk about today.
Thank you, Gargi. The pleasure is all mine.
So, Shurjo, before I go ahead, I think I have a lot of questions for you because as I know that you help scientists to get their research funded, and I think that is one of the most important things in science. But for my audience, I would like to give a short introduction. But I know your journey is fantastic; it's very versatile. So we will hear that story too from you. So to my audience, if you are hearing this podcast now, Shurjo is experienced federal program director, a science diplomat, and a trained negotiator. He is the winner of 2014 CW Cotterman Award from American Society of Human Genetics for outstanding scientific contribution to the field of human genetics. His research interests spans computational genomics, cardiovascular disease, and microbiome science. Not only that, Shurjo helps to manage research grant portfolio, providing stewardship of over $20 million of federal funds. He also helps in conceptualizing, developing, and launching new funding initiatives for cutting-edge genomics research, connecting DNA sequencing laboratories to practicing healthcare professionals. So if you are a life science enthusiast or a healthcare professional, this is going to be a gold mine today. So Shurjo, first question and my favorite one to all my guests, please tell us about your career journey, the path that you have crossed, and you are standing where you are today. So it will be very fascinating to learn from you.
Of course, Gargi. So my career has been a fun one. I feel I'm lucky. I still find myself in a job where going to work every day is something I look forward to. But it all starts long ago. Of course, like many of your audience members, maybe I grew up in West Bengal in India, also in some parts of Assam earlier on. But I studied zoology for my bachelor's and master's degrees. I had no real idea what genetics or genomics, well, maybe a little bit of genetics, but not much about genomics. And then in 2004, I came to the US, first actually to work in a Drosophila lab. But then the lab PI and I didn't get along, and I almost got fired. But then he basically dropped me off in the lab of a collaborator who happened to be a genomics person. So my subsequent 20 years of professional life all basically start with someone saying, I don't like you and I'm not going to keep you in my lab. You're just going to this other place. And that happened to be a genomics place. But yeah, since then, it's just been, one wonderful, wild ride professionally, all good stuff. I started genomics just as the new kind of DNA sequencers were starting to come around, next gen sequencers, massively parallel sequencers, whatever you want to call them. So I was in the right place at the right time. I finished my PhD in 2008, fairly quickly because the person I got dropped off with, he really worked us hard, but all in a good way. And then I came to NIH, which in some ways I haven't left for almost 18 or 19 years. So I finished my PhD just as genomics was starting to get used in hospital systems to diagnose and treat rare disease patients, sometimes even common disease patients. And NIH, of course, is in some ways where the world's most cutting edge funding,
Yes.
and sometimes even on campus, the research is fantastic as well. So I've been at NIH for 20 years. I was a postdoc, staff scientist. I led a little group that sequenced microbiomes. And then about 6 years ago, Eric Green, my former postdoc advisor, said, "Would you like a different kind of job in science?" I said, "Sure, what kind of job?" So he says, "You seem to know your way around people and you seem to enjoy working with early career professionals. Maybe you should try science funding and being a money person rather than a lab person." So I said, "Sure, if the pay is good and you have a visa, I'll take it." So anyhow, for 6 years I've had this job. I'm sort of a hybrid of a venture capitalist and a scientist. I talk to people that do real science and I say, what is it that stops you from doing other things that you want to do? I collect viewpoints from people that are actual practicing scientists. And then I come back and I go to NIH leadership and I say, I need another $20 million because I can see scientists are stuck, genomic scientists are stuck in this one area and we need to put new money in. So essentially, along with others, I invest taxpayer money in these new and upcoming fields in genomics. And sometimes they work, sometimes they need a little more help. But like any other investor, some of my investments pay off, other things we just have to pull money back from and put it somewhere else. So I guess that's how I would describe where I am now. I'm a 50% scientist, 50% venture capitalist, but all in the realm of helping people get treated quickly if they have a genetic variant that causes a disease. So I hope that was helpful, but happy to fill in other things.
Yeah, I think Shurjo, it's fantastic. I mean, because when we talk about career, or even when we started our career, we have been taught, or maybe we have taken cues from our society or people we have been seeing, that there is always, like, we think there is a one path kind of a thing. Just curious, how do you find this transition from being a scientist who is a hardcore scientist in the lab, versus you now doing I mean, you are managing money in that way and helping scientists to get funds. So how is that transition and how you feel about it?
Yeah, when I made that transition, I asked a lot of people who had made it before me, saying like, what was the first thing you missed? Or did you regret leaving the lab? Did you regret leaving the ability to do your own experiments and taking on this other job, which is science, but not in a hands-on sense? So the common answer, or the biggest theme that I got from those answers, were because we talk to so many scientists and because sometimes we can see what the future is a little before. When someone does science in their own lab, they're looking at essentially one view of what science is, their lab's question, their lab's topic, the particular disease they study, the particular gene. They look at it through their lens. What we get to do, which I think is one of the most fun parts of this job, is we get to talk to so many people that have so many lenses or so many different takes that we get to see one step beyond.
Right.
So I don't miss the lab. I had many fun years, but I don't miss the lab because I can help people in the lab get one step ahead because we can see just a little bit beyond the horizon.
Correct.
So this is science. It's not hands-on science, but it is so directly connected to people doing science that I never feel that I'm losing touch with the earlier part of me. The part now, I don't write my own Python code any longer. It's getting a
Right.
little rusty. I probably could still use a pipette and make a sequencing library, but I haven't done that for 5 or 6 years. So those parts, there are days when I say, I wonder if I could still do it. But in terms of the scientific connection or the feeling that what I do matters and is scientifically relevant, I've never regretted leaving the lab and coming to this money management role.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for sharing that. As I understand that you also create new training programs, for example, to give more diversity to the genomic data science stuff, and so that making it more interdisciplinary. So, how is that? I mean, my question, if I would be more specific, is more like, is it only for people who are in the West, or anybody can get into such training programs from any other part of the world?
Oh, no, 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 no. Absolutely not only for people in the West. The way to view it would
Hmm.
be genomic data science 10 or 15 years ago when I started working in this field and I was still in the lab, or I
Hmm.
should say the office. I was a practicing bioinformatician. I wrote
Right.
code, I analyzed data, I made figures, but the workforce was almost completely either white men, South Asian, mostly Indian men, and Chinese men.
Okay.
Actually, there were not even so many white women.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, even in the U.S., if you were a minority student, African American, Hispanic, most in most cases, the colleges that were recruiting minority students of any kind,
Hmm.
not just African Americans and Hispanics, Native Americans, pretty much anyone that's a minority in the U.S. These students went to colleges that were not teaching genomic data science. They had no faculty members who could teach
Hmm.
those topics. They had no computers that could handle large data sets. So there are two levels of disparity. There's disparity within the US.
Right.
Even in the US, unless you're on the East Coast or the West Coast and your parents are paying for a fairly nice college, chances are that you don't learn Python and biostatistics as part of your undergraduate degree. So, which results in a workforce which was very, very depleted of minority participation.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's the global piece where because so much genomic data comes out of US labs or
Hmm.
European labs, that globally the powerhouse of genomic data science has been in the West.
Right.
And for example, last year I had a wonderful opportunity to spend some time in Sri Lanka. The same enthusiasm that we have in India, the same enthusiasm I had as a 24-year-old,
Hmm.
all of the intelligence, all of the hard work, but just not access to the computers. So no HPC, very little genomic data from Sri Lankan subjects.
Hmm.
So what NIH does, and actually what my fellowship project was, we use cloud computing as a way of fixing this. So today, for someone to learn or to teach genomic data science, your university does not need to have its own big, powerful computer.
Right.
NHGRI, my workplace, has invested tens of millions of dollars in setting up cloud infrastructure for genomic data science through what we call the Anvil. And really, these cloud tools have made it possible for anyone, anywhere. I could sit in a time machine and I could go back to 2004 in Jodhpur Park, Kolkata, where I grew up. And sitting in my parents' bedroom, I could probably teach myself enough genomic data science to join any lab anywhere. But
Right.
my work is building these tools is one thing. Building
Hmm.
Anvil, putting educational content on Anvil is what I do for 25% of my time.
Right.
Another 25% is getting it into the hands of people, doing
Hmm.
talks saying you can do this. You don't need to be in New York or Washington D.C. or California to learn these things. We have put it all on the cloud. Log in, just do it. Google will give you $300 of free credits. Use those $300. Just teach yourself rather than waiting to apply
Hmm.
to a expensive university where you would have to learn this in class. So it's a time of change. It's a time of democratization. I think 10 years ago, minority students had a much higher barrier or hurdle if they wanted to learn bioinformatics. Today, the only barrier is in the mind. uh, I don't think there are any more infrastructural or financial barriers. There might be an information gap. These students may not
Right.
know
Hmm.
about this, but
Hmm.
that's part of my job to go out there and tell them that these tools exist.
Correct. Correct. So I think it's a very interesting area, and just that I come from a background of healthcare, it always hits my mind. Like when it comes to genomics, of course, like as I keep seeing in India, when I started talking about a little bit about from my background about genetics or genomics in application in clinical practice, I think, and particularly I was focused on dental sciences. So I always used to get that perception that I'm talking way ahead of time. But as we see now, the present time, I think the shift in the industry in terms of training or even the adoption of genomic testing in common people has grown. I mean, that's a very positive sign which I see. But
Yeah.
still, I have certain things, certain questions which keeps running in my mind. So, for example, when if anybody is offering us with genomic testing, if I may just take the most dreadful disease like cancer. So, do you think, or maybe I will just ask your suggestion or opinion on this, that when we are talking about early diagnosis of cancer, how effective is actually genomic testing? Because if I'm talking in perspective of India, do we really have that background population data set, because we are diverse genetically so much in India?
It all changed. So for many years, I've followed Indian genomics to the extent that I can from outside the country, and I think
Right.
it was in either maybe February of this year. I was still in Sri Lanka when I read that
Hmm.
article, but as it stands, I think there is a 10,000 Indian genome project that
Yeah,
has made its data public.
correct.
Now, 10,000 is a large number, but not a massive number. I mean,
Hmm.
for perspective, when you see Genomics England, which
Hmm.
England has, I don't know, maybe 1/10 or 1/20th the population of India,
Hmm.
they, of course, Western country, more money, they just sequenced 100,000 of their people.
Right.
So it's not for me to make a politically loaded statement, but I don't know if Indian science administrators could pump more money in and go from
Hmm.
10,000 to 100,000 or maybe a million.
Right.
But I mean, the thing to remember is 10,000 is a very, very decent number for making a start with
Yes.
regards to genomic. I mean, for perspective, in Sri Lanka, there is one Sri Lankan genome, and that too is, I think, at this point, 10 years old. So really, and they're right next to us, right? So when we look at comparative numbers, I mean, the
Hmm.
fact that if an Indian patient now gets their tumor sequenced,
Hmm.
they have 10,000 more of their countrymen to compare the sequence against.
That's true.
Plus, there are fantastic cancer labs in India. There are
Yes.
companies. I mean, I worked pretty closely for the Sri Lankan thing with Vinod Skaria at Karkinos Healthcare.
Ah, okay. Hmm.
Yeah, he's doing fantastic work.
Yes.
I'm sure there are tons of others. So I don't think there's any reason for a genomic disease patient in India to not trust the diagnosis. I mean, the other thing here is that if they have a family member that
Hmm.
can also offer to be sequenced, the easiest way to compare might be through a sibling or a family member rather than
Hmm.
a large population cohort. So we have the bioinformatics in India, we have the sequencing facilities, we have the manpower to analyze the data. There's absolutely no reason that this should not. It is happening. So, I mean, in a
Yes.
sense, it's a moot question. But I mean, India is actually, from what I learned in my State Department fellowship,
Hmm.
India is leading not just in a regional, but maybe even in a Asian perspective. I think India is
Hmm.
really doing well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
So,
the cloud is a
huh.
different. There are data protection laws. It's not as easy for Indian scientists to collaborate with
Absolutely.
people outside the country because it's my understanding that genomic data cannot be housed on servers that are not Indian servers, which makes it a little complicated. But that's a relatively minor barrier, I would say.
Correct. So So Shurjo, I think since you are now managing money for science, so let me just shift my question to that aspect. So if I may ask in a very layman way to you, how exactly any scientist could apply for research funding to get funded through NIH? What would be that? Can you give us some very short steps that way? Easy
So
steps.
scientists in the US or scientists in other countries, scientists in India, would you have a location in mind for these people that
I will definitely prefer India, but yes, if you can give
okay.
an overview as such, also would be good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, of course. So NIH does fund a lot of research in countries other than the US.
Hmm.
So it's important to remember that even a funding opportunity that I published last year is
Hmm.
getting applications from at least 3, 4 countries that are outside the US. So let me put it this way. The first thing to do would be to start with going to the NIH website. And there are tools. I mean, I can send you stuff in your email that you might put in the text with this interview.
Sure.
Just talking, but there are quick ways of checking what NIH is publishing as new funding opportunities.
Hmm.
Then the next step is to go click on one of those and immediately go to the part that talks about foreign applications. It will have a fairly simple yes no field saying yes, foreign applications allowed, no, foreign applications not allowed.
Hmm.
There is a third thing called foreign subcomponents where the applicant has to be an American, but they can send part of the money to a collaborator in another country. So three
Okay.
levels. Number one, some will just say no foreign applicants. This
Right.
money, this new funding announcement is only for American scientists.
Hmm. Hmm.
Some others will say anyone anywhere can apply. So that makes it open to all applicants, all countries. So there are some, but we will not fund someone in North Korea, for example, or at this
Hmm.
point, we will not fund almost anyone in Russia.
Right.
But if it says foreign applications allowed, unless you're in one of these countries that are banned countries, you're welcome
Right.
to apply.
Hmm.
The third one is a hybrid situation where if you have an American collaborator
Hmm.
and you say, let's do this together, you apply, but I'm willing to do part of the work. Then your American collaborator can actually write in a budget line item saying, my Indian collaborator will do this work and I need to send the money there. So three different levels. But
Okay.
for example, one of my RO3 applications, which is actually next February is the next application receipt date. So people have 3, 4 months to write an
Right.
application if they want. But that one is open to foreign applicants. I'm actually expecting some applications from Sri Lanka. So NIH is not, it is different with the current US administration. Things are getting harder
Hmm.
to fund outside the US, but
Hmm.
the door is not completely closed, is my point.
Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So thank you, Shurjo. It was like I think it is a very valuable points that you told, and I think people who are interested in application, at least they know where to go and how to check through things.
And I forgot to add one piece. There
Hmm.
is actually a NIH office called the
Hmm.
Fogarty International Center,
Okay.
which specifically works with countries across the world. And
Okay.
Fogarty has a South Asia office. My good friend and mentor Ranjan Gupta leads it.
Oh.
He's an NIH employee like me. He's completely 100% American government employee, but he
Mm-hmm.
spends at least 6 months in Delhi working with the Indian government,
Hmm.
mostly infectious disease research. But another piece of evidence that NIH money is also used to fund science outside the US comes from the fact that we literally have a NIH person who spends a large time of his year in India working with the Indian government, with Indian scientists.
Right.
So this is, I think, one aspect of NIH that some people don't always understand. It's not
Hmm.
just, it is mostly American science because it is
Hmm.
American taxpayer money, but there is
Correct.
international collaboration involved.
Right. So just one question, picking up a point that you were telling, when it comes to collaborators, like you said, if we have a American collaborator and Indian collaborator, so this Indian collaborator, is it is supposed to be only academic institutions or any companies can also be Indian collaborator?
NIH has small business applications where companies can apply. It has regular research applications where
Hmm.
mostly academics. It all boils down to a series of registrations. Like, let me put it this way, even in
Hmm.
the US,
Hmm.
if I start a new scientific research company with 5 people, a really small company,
Hmm.
before I can apply to NIH, I need to get things such as a SAM registration number,
Yeah.
bureaucratic things, but basically I have to have certain paperwork on file before I can receive money.
Correct.
So the same thing would apply for an Indian collaborator. They would need to be registered with the local US embassy. They
Hmm.
would need a SAM number. But
Yeah.
it happens. I mean, even in Colombo, which is, you know, there are at least 6 NIH grants to institutions in the city of Colombo. And all of them went through this process of getting registered and being eligible to receive
Hmm.
NIH funding. Now, and not all of them are academic institutions, at least one of them is a company. So
Okay.
it boils down to whether the PI or the business owner is willing to put the work and effort into having their
Correct.
formal registrations on
Hmm.
file.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you, Shurjo.
Yeah.
And just one more question, maybe coming to our concluding part of our conversation, is like how you see genomics when it comes to healthcare translation into clinical practice or stuff like that. Uh, can you? What is your big picture that you see as a scientist and even as a
Yeah, no,
funding? Yes.
I think it is almost guaranteed that over the next 10 to 25 years,
Hmm.
let me put it this way, when in 1910 or 15 or whenever the X-ray as a technique was invented,
Hmm.
I don't think anyone realized that within 15 or 20 years, just after the First World War, X-ray machines would go into nearly every hospital, at least in the West, right?
Right.
So I think we are at that point where in the next 10, 15 years, definitely in the next 25 years, every doctor will be using DNA just like they use a stethoscope or just like they use an X-ray machine. I mean, right now it gets used in cancer a lot
Yeah.
because it is a cancer, and in some cases in immune disease or rare
Yeah.
childhood diseases.
Right.
But I think if we take type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease,
Hmm.
two things that commonly affect Indians, one of the biggest changes, I think, will be South Asian ancestry individuals being told that you have this specific marker which puts you at risk.
Hmm.
You need to change your diet. You need to consider a statin much earlier than we are right now. We still treat these things after they happen. Someone gets chest
Yes.
pain, they go to the doctor. Doctor says you have a blockage. You need to
Correct.
change your lifestyle. But I think with genomics in 10 years or 15 years, someone will get that diagnosis in their late 20s, early 30s, maybe even at birth if we
Hmm.
start
Hmm.
newborn sequencing like the
Hmm.
UK is doing.
Hmm.
So the whole point of genomic medicine is catching disease before it happens. And
Exactly.
then once it's caught, finding the best drug for the person, not just the drug that worked in a large clinical trial,
Hmm.
but what specific medication works for each individual. So I think a lot depends on education of
Hmm.
healthcare practitioners. Medical students don't learn right now too much genomics, which is something we also need to consider. I don't know whether the Medical Council of India is already including genomics in their
Hmm.
doctors' education, but I think it's almost 100% guaranteed that genomics will become just like any other tool that a doctor uses to get a patient either diagnosed quickly or treated best after diagnosis. It will
Right.
happen. I have no doubt about this.
Thank you, Shurjo. It was
It is. I
wonderful.
mean,
Yeah.
from Vinod, I
Hmm.
learned that in some healthcare systems in South India, for example, this is
Right.
already a routine process. Someone comes in, they give a
Exactly.
tumor sample, they get sequenced, they get a specific diagnosis,
Hmm.
all within a matter of days. So genomic
Hmm.
medicine is real. I mean, it might start reaching poorer people in a few more years when the cost
Yeah.
drops even further. But right now, this
Yeah.
is already happening.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, any last message from you, Shurjo?
No, it's an exciting time for genomics. I think India is a powerhouse of genomics research, both experimental and computational. If I were to sit in a time machine and go back
Hmm,
21 years, and if this was 2000, if I was an undergraduate now, I would say I may not even need to leave. I would stay back in India. I would do this in my own country.
correct.
When I was an undergraduate, I did not have those opportunities. There was only one sequencer in all of Calcutta, and that too, you had to know the right people to use it. But
Hmm.
anyhow, so India, it's a whole different story. If I, like I said, we as a country, we are doing really well, and I think we are going to do even better.
Thank you, Shurjo. It was wonderful talking to you. And once again, thank you for your time today and being on my podcast. It's a pleasure. And it was fun conversation and so much to learn and so much insights we got. Thank you so much.
The pleasure is all mine, Gargi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.